but across the Capitol in the Senate, the Natural Resources and Energy Committee was yanking the 3-year moratorium on wind energy and instead substituting a law we all know, turbines would fall under Act 250 jurisdiction.
Some of us were kind of worried when the moratorium suspension language came out of the bill, but I think we met our end goal, which was to have the planning process be properly vetted, so that if we're going to move ahead with this kind of construction, that is properly cited and that the town and regional plans are followed.
Wind really affects your part of the state, Bethany. How do you think is this a compromise? Is this going to be satisfactory to towns that feel abused by the Public Service Board? Well,
certainly it would help to know that it was going to go through the Act 250 criteria. As I understand it, it still goes through the Public Service Board, which should be some assurance to those who really want to see these projects. It's not going through the environmental commissions.
Right.
But if this does happen, I think that the biggest frustration has been for towns who, if you think about a big wind project on a ridgeline, Lowell is going to vote on town meeting what to do with all the money they're getting. Meanwhile, Craftsbury had no say at all. But if you have a regional planning process where you can work it out between the towns, and that has some weight in this new process, I think it would satisfy a lot of the concerns, because we all know we need some of these projects. How are you going to cite them, and how does it get worked out? So far, it has felt incredibly unfair. And I think that there will be definitely disappointment that there's not a moratorium, if that's totally dead, but that this would be a good, definitely something helpful to people who have been frustrated.
This bill still has a long way to go, and the dynamic in the Senate is so different than the dynamic in the House. When you look at who chairs the House Natural Resources Committee, Tony Klein, I can't see a bill like this clearing his committee at all. I think it's going to run into a lot of challenges once it moves into the House chamber, and its fate there could be much less certain. But obviously this idea of switching from the moratorium to Act 250 is a way for supporters to try to keep this bill alive. I can remember back 10 years ago, there were anti-wind lawmakers who were trying to get it under Act 250 when Republicans had control of the House. But, I think once this starts moving, a lot could change.
Isn't the theme, though, that if you can get it in Act 250, that if you're an opponent, if you're an anti-wind person, that's a way to gum up the works, and it extends out the process a lot more than how rapid some of these bills or some of these projects have been approved. So,
the governor thinks so. He said, yeah. Why would we want to do anything that would slow construction of more renewable energy projects?
Right.
Well, there was some interesting polling guidance out from Castleton State, the Castleton Polling Institute, on this very question: do you support construction of wind energy turbines on Vermont's ridgelines? 66% of those surveyed said yes. Now, the anti-wind people say that represents some erosion of a couple of points from previous polling. The anti-wind people also say that question is pretty meaningless, that the better question is, do you support having local towns have influence over whether turbines go up? But it's a pretty straightforward question, and 2/3 still say yes, and another 14% say, well, maybe. Those numbers surprise you at all? Is that about what you expect?
I'm surprised it's that far apart. I think it shows that Vermonters, to believe the poll, are big on wind, and for all the noise that the opponents have made, they are still a distinct minority, and a strong majority wants to see these things. Even if the question, if it's in your own community, the numbers are actually even a little better than those numbers we just looked on the screen there. So it's. Yeah, the numbers might fluctuate 2 or 3, but in a poll, that's within the margin of error. I'm
not surprised, even though I've seen probably more of the opposition than anyone here, because if you look at the population of the state, and it's mostly, in Chittenden County, and I'm assuming that the poll would reflect the population, and I think that even in Orleans or Essex counties, for a long time, people thought, oh yeah, we would like renewable energy, until they started hearing more of the details of how it would affect them directly. And so that, to some extent, this probably does reflect the state because there aren't as many people up in our neck of the woods.
Although I was surprised that the support for this was pretty consistent when crosstabs are factored in. I mean, Republicans support this, independents, Democrats, people of different income levels, both genders, so or household income. It was really pretty uniform, which you could not say about the other question that Castleton tested, support for the governor's single-payer health care plan. A